Cool beans, cool beans. Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the beginning of the week, fundamental and technical analysis. Before I jump into it, let me give a quick disclaimer. As always, this is not financial advice. Anything that I share during this analysis is for educational purposes only. I repeat, this is not financial advice. Any and everything that I share during this analysis is for educational purposes only. Cool beans, cool beans. All right, guys. So we see that we did finally push our way up into this volume imbalance that I pointed out to you guys last week. I told you guys last Monday that I wanted to see price reach up into this daily volume imbalance, right? And see how we reacted to that level. Now, Thursday was our last day of trading for last week. We had a short week, but we see that we did achieve um, that target on Thursday. We reached up into that daily volume imbalance, right? And today, the market just aggressively pushed through that volume imbalance, right? So I do want to see the dollar continue to push higher. Um, Order flow or price action is showing that it is wanting to fill in this imbalance that we see here, right? We blow through this PD array or daily volume imbalance, right? And within these, or a little bit above these weekly PD arrays, which is they're old weekly PD arrays back from November, but they're the most relevant PD arrays within this area. So, but right above these weekly PD arrays, we do have some monthly PD arrays as well from November. Yeah, November as well. So, um, I do expect the dollar to keep pushing higher. Uh, and I got my eye on this void in price that we see right here, right? Michael Huddleston calls it the liquidity void, right? I'm just gonna call it a void because we see that the chart is void of price right there in that area, right? So um depending on how we react to these PD arrays when price get up in that area, right? Um, whether we see it push back down aggressively off of these levels or blow through them like this candle did today will determine where we go from there once price reach that area. Cool beans. So for moving forward, I'm anticipating a pullback, of course, probably back down to the top of this volume imbalance and then continue to push higher, right? That's what I'm expecting out of the dollar moving forward. Looking at currencies, I told you guys on the last call that I wanted to see Euro USD reach for the monthly sell side liquidity. So that was last Monday, that was last Wednesday, which we was around here. So we're down like 100 pips off the level and from our last our last class from last Wednesday. So cool beans. I do want to see us run through that, right? And run this swing low here as well. So we'll see how that plays out. Same thing with GBP USD. I told you guys that I wanted to see GBP USD run the monthly sell side liquidity. We running um, off of the level from last Wednesday, which was here, right? Down over 100 pips as well. Same thing for NZD/USD. We wanted to see price fill in this imbalance, take out this swing low. And so we reaching. It's just not moving as fast as euro and the pound, but it's moving. We get the down about 50 pips now, so it'll catch up. Moving on to futures, I'm still wanting to see ES pull back down into March the 20th discount daily discount PD array. So that's what I want to see out of ES. NQ as well. Even though NQ came within a few ticks, right? I still want to see us reach down into there again. This time I want to see us reach all the way down to the 79 percent daily PD array from March the 20th as well. Cool beans? Cool beans. Well, that will conclude the beginning of the week technical analysis. At this time, I'll pass it over to Carmen so she can give us the sauce with the fundamental. It is all yours, Carmen.
Cool. Hey everybody. So, a couple of things we're going to talk about tonight, but first I'm going to go over the Forex Factory calendar and then we'll kind of move into some other topics. So, just waiting for this to load for you guys to see it. All right. So on the Forex Factory calendar, we did start off the week with some bank holidays. So, um even with that being said, the markets the volume was it wasn't missing like it would normally be. So that made for a very interesting trading day. We did have ISM manufacturing news that came out today, which was greater than forecast. And then we also had pricing that was greater than forecast. So these are a lot of things now that you could say the Fed would need to take into consideration, but um, lately that hasn't been the case. There's a big push for the Fed to start taking some of these other things into consideration, these smaller economic factors into consideration. So let's hope that they do. This kind of will roll into one of my topics that we'll talk about after the Forex Factory calendar. So tomorrow we have JOLTS jobs. This will be a non-farm payroll week. So we are getting the first taste of job numbers when this comes out. So, whenever we have weeks where JOLTS jobs, ADP jobs, and then the government job numbers come out, um, it's it's kind of interesting to see how they all align, or if they don't, which one doesn't align, and then see how they acquired their numbers and compare them to the others. So that will be a point of interest. Wednesday, ADP job numbers. That's always the Wednesday before non-farm payroll, along with ISM. We'll get one of the ISMs that will come out with this ADP number. We also have Jerome Powell speaking. Again, if you're not familiar with how to find this information, to see the speech, if you click, and this is really for any of the news items, but you can click the source, and it hasn't changed yet, but it will possibly by in the morning, to where you can actually get the link directly to where they will show the speech. But anytime now that Jerome Powell speaks, people are going to listen. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's going to be on a news platform, an educational platform, World Economic Forum. It just really doesn't matter. At this point in time, people want to know. Um, there's so much uncertainty already with a presidential election year that people want to know as much as possible, because this will help people and corporations to gauge what their future is going to be like. So Wednesday will definitely be a high impact news day, not only for the fact that Jerome Powell is speaking, but because we do have another job indicator that's coming out. Thursday, unemployment claims, and we have quite a few Fed members actually, or FOMC members actually speaking this week. So Jerome Powell isn't the only one. But back to unemployment claims, we do have that coming out. This is not only a big topic for the Fed, but it's also one of those topics that gets talked about in the presidential race, helping more Americans have jobs, helping to make sure that those who desire jobs have them, and just keeping keeping the job market open, so that people really are able to take full advantage in the economy that we currently have. And then Friday, non-farm payroll. This will roll out with Canada's news. I'm stating this because um, the US isn't the only country that is having some issues with their leadership. There have been a lot of elections that have happened so far this year in countries around the world where people are like, look, you've been in leadership long enough, and we just have no desire to see you continue in leadership anymore. And so those people have been voted out. Canada is currently not happy. And obviously, you have people here that aren't happy. And so I think this is going to be one of those years where you start to see a very big overturning of government staff. That could be for good, that could be for um, near term uncertainty, because especially here in the United States, you have a lot of older government staff being replaced with younger staff, which on the surface, in the grand scheme of things, it's not bad, because it's like, fresh perspective, fresh ideas. However, um when you think of ideologies and how people think, believe, feel that things should go, um take this however you want to, I don't care, but when you have a lot of woke people in office, that tends to steer policy in that way. And if someone expressing their thoughts, their opinions, um without harm and without making a fuss, if cancel culture can happen to everyday people and people aren't able to actually live their lives without fear of what will happen to them or the consequences, no one should live in that type of fear. Then you start getting into a tyrannical type of government and structure where um it's like either it's a do or die, where people feel like they have to rebel against a government structure that's really trying to push them into a box that they don't want to be in. And then also, if you look at the ideals of what the United States were based on, that's not it. Um, so, um, as much as someone's feelings may be hurt, um, you know, oh well, it's your feelings, but you know, that's what we've come to. But luckily, there are places where government leadership has decided that, you know what, we're not going to stand for certain things. And that's why I say that, it could be for good, it could be for bad, because when we start talking about politics in the United States is one thing, but talking about intermingling and doing global business with other countries and stuff, that's where you could start running into some issues. And so that kind of rolls out into some of the other topics that I had. Um, so our relationship with other countries at this point, some is pretty good, some it's okay, then some is just not all that great. And with the country for the countries with the countries where we did have relatively decent um relationships, a lot of the leadership now that we have coming up through the ranks in the United States, they're really starting to um tear down some of the relationships that were built, um and that harms and hurts everybody. um Canada being one, doing business with the UK is another. We already know that our relationship has been strained with a lot of the countries in OPEC. Um, but now that a lot of the OPEC nations are starting to join BRICS and a lot of their allies are joining BRICS, it really starts to narrow the number of countries that we actually have that we can call a friend, we can call an ally, who might actually be able to help us in a time of need. So that's one thing. But another thing would be anytime anything major happens in the United States, and when I say major, I mean like anything that happens to our infrastructure, anything that happens to points of entry or exit, um, presidential election years. No, it sounds kind of broad to call it the whole year, but um, just the element of uncertainty makes it, up until November, so you can pretty much say the whole year. Um, Things like that. Anytime you have those things happen, it's very important to pay attention to resources. And it's not just, oh, what's the um coming back here to look and say like, oh, okay, what's natural gas storage like? Or coming back to Wednesday's news and saying like, oh, what's crude oil inventories like? No, not that. It's how much uh let me go back. Let me figure out how to word this. How many resources coming into one given area have shifted from being internal to external. So, um, let's say there's a hurricane. Look, let's go back because it's already happened. In 2005, when Katrina hit the Gulf, the United States was pretty self-sufficient for getting seafood because we had a direct pipeline to getting seafood. But when that happens, now you have to shift to different areas to be able to get seafood. So we went from being pretty much self-sufficient and we only imported the more exotic brands or breeds, and things on a smaller scale to importing shrimp from Argentina like on a regular basis because we had to wait for our supply to come back. And that took years. So the reason why, to get to the point, the this whole issue with Baltimore and the bridge is so important, or a pipeline getting shut off, things like that. The reason why those things are so important is because there's a natural flow, there's a natural order flow that happens when you have infrastructure in place. When that infrastructure is interrupted, now you have to find a new way to get the same level of supply that you have for a demand that has not changed and will probably grow. So we are leaving winter, we're in spring, even though sometimes the weather doesn't feel like it. There's a shift that is supposed to happen in vegetation. There's a shift that's supposed to happen in oil and oil resources and oil types. There's a shift that's supposed to happen in dynamics. There's a shift that's supposed to happen in the monetary supply. Those things aren't happening. Um, and then when you think about, okay, a bridge, people might not think one bridge matters, but think about where a bridge leads to. When you start hearing people talk about how we could get a whole nother set of supply interruptions is a code phrase for inflation. Don't let people trick you into feeling like or thinking that, oh, you know, it's not that bad. It's just going to be some temporary interruptions. Temporary interruptions means that it won't be on the shelf. What's currently on the shelf is going to get priced higher. You're going to end up paying more. And those companies are just going to see, like, okay, if we push this price higher, will people actually buy it? It's like the COVID effect on prices. So think about that. That's near enough that people still remember what happened with COVID and prices. And I say that because there are several things, not just Baltimore, but there are several things happening like that in the United States currently. They won't tell you about it because A, they don't want to freak you out. Two, it's a presidential election year. They don't want to make Biden look bad. But three, it'll show you all the loopholes and all the problems that have been happening with what's going on. So you have illegal immigrants that have come in. Those illegal immigrants have some with good intentions, but I don't care. Some with good intentions, some with bad intentions. And the ones with bad intentions are the ones they really don't want you to know about because so far they found 4 terrorists or people that are on the terrorist watch list that have come in through means of an open border policy. One of them being in North Carolina. So it's like, hey, you know, no one wants to say those things out loud. No one wants to call it what it is, but it's a problem. It's a really big problems. And so now, in times like this, we end up not really being able to understand full truth, not really being able to understand what's going on. That's why presidential election years, um, just to really keep it just really simple, that's why presidential election years are hard. And you have to um, just really keep your eyes open and just have a really good understanding of how many different ways can this be said and how many different ways can this be said to my face that it sounds good, but it's really not all that great. Because it will happen. Yes, there was a terrorist found in North Carolina, central North Carolina. Actually, the 4 that have been found in the United States have actually been found to be living. The one in North Carolina was within an hour of nuclear power plants in Virginia and North Carolina. The others were found to be living within a mile and a half of critical infrastructure facilities. They didn't say what. The governor of North Carolina actually called it what it was and just flat out said it was nuclear power plants. But for the other states, they just said critical infrastructure facilities. This is what we've come to. This is where we are. And sometimes you might hear people get on the soapbox about these types of things, and you might think, oh, it's not that bad. We have people filling in gaps, holes. That's why the job numbers become more important. That's why this unemployment claims is red. It will forever be red until we get a different set of policy that comes in. When we start talking about the housing market, You guys know that we actually have a relatively decent housing market. I actually had to go through Zillow and pull up a housing report and actually read this for myself. So in New York, they have plenty of houses on the market. They've been sitting on the market though for forever. You want to know why? Because 30% of the houses that are on the market, they can't sell them because there are squatters living in the houses. So when you tell me, oh, it's not a problem, it's okay, I'm going to have a different opinion about it because I actually go to sources and I actually go read for myself and I actually go look at court reports. I go look at congress.gov. I go look at all those things and it's like, okay, yes, problem. Luckily, though, Florida just passed a new anti-squatting law. If you're found to be squatting, you're like out immediately, arrested immediately. Georgia's passing one, but New York is one of those very liberal states. California, super liberal states. So people know what states to move to get away with things. I actually had someone tell me that when they get here, meaning like illegally get here, well, I told them personally what I would do to them if I saw them here. I can't say it right now, but they told me when they got here, they would go to California or New York. Like, oh, really? Why? Because they're not going to do anything to me. And by the time they do, I'll have what I need and I'm gone. So that's the kind of policy that we have here in the United States currently. So, yeah, to get back on point and on topic, um, there are a lot of things that I feel like people should really be taking advantage of in situations now that you hear about. A, just be prepared. And whether that's personal protection, whether that's food protection, shelter protection, whatever you want to do, like just because you don't want to get to the point where someone says, oh, resources are going to dry up. We're not going to be able to stock the shelves with food because someone damaged a pipeline. Now oil is not getting to where it needs to go. If you have food, you're good. Money, you're good. That's why, I've said it to you guys before. I will say it again. And I can actually show you pictures now because it's that time of the year. Like, I'll be like food sufficient, like in about a month. Like, minus meat. I go to farms to get that anyway. But it's like, pay your debt. And so when you pay down your debt, then any extra income you do have out of your paycheck then just becomes liquid income. So if you make 2,000, but your debt payments are like 500, and then you got bills and you end up and you're like, oh, I have no money by the time I'm done paying bills, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, make every aggressive attempt that you can to pay down that debt. Because guess what? That will then open up $500 for you to have every month or every paycheck or however. So then you can have that money and you can actually save. You can actually have money to invest. You can have money to do all these other things that you hear people talking about, things that you just want to do personally. And that will help to put you in a more comfortable position. It's just all about preparedness. And when people talk about preparedness, people freak out because you're like, well, what's going to happen? And you think, the worst. Sometimes you have to somewhat think about the worst because that's the only way you're going to be prepared. But if you're prepared for it, you're not scared for it when it happens. So, um, those are the only things I have to say. Um, I know it was a little bit of a soapbox. I'm sorry for that. Not really, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's just the reality that we live in. So just make sure that you know and understand that we do have some critical events going on here in the US that are affecting our economy directly or indirectly if you live in the Southeast Mid-Atlantic states. Um, Obviously, presidential election year, so news day to day that comes out is going to change things. Um, Geopolitically, just with BRICS starting to really ramp up, other countries really starting to express how they feel about the United States. And then just for this week, the fact that we have all of this news coming out. So the rest of this week will be news heavy. They will be items that, in my opinion, I feel that the Fed will need to address in some way during their next Fed meeting. If you've read any of those reports, you know at least two of these will be covered in that very first sentence about maximum employment and stable pricing. Um, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Um, so I'll leave it at that for now. And Friday we can hopefully maybe have an open discussion about some of these things, some of these topics to kind of wrap up the week. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Levels. Thanks for listening.
Cool beans, cool beans. That was great as always, Carmen. We appreciate the sauce that you bring us each and every night. So, with that being said, as always, I appreciate you guys coming out tonight, tuning in, getting this knowledge and empowering yourself. If you are gaining any value from these sessions whatsoever, feel free to like, share, most of all, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really helps out a lot. If you're interested in joining the private Telegram group, visit precisionpipsllc.com and sign up for the silver pack. With that being said, as always, guys, let your family and friends know you love them while they still here. Please. And as always, peace and love, everybody. You know.